I'm gonna be real with you. I do not understand the point of these kinds of math problems. These come up all the time. They're all over the STAR test, they're all over the SAT and ACT. I don't know who writes these problems that just really loves them, but they are all over the place. And it's just the test whether or not you can turn English into math, sometimes vice versa. Um, and gosh, they're just so confusing. And I confess I don't know of a place outside of math class where something like this comes up because I don't nobody talks like this. But we got to learn how to do it because reasons. So let's learn how to do it. It says we're going to write an inequality to represent this relationship, and here's our sentence. Twice a number plus 4 is greater than 2/3 of the number. Now, the only part of this that I think is really important to know is greater than. I do think it's really important for us to know that greater than is this symbol. I have never been a big fan of learning like the alligator eats the big one or whatever. Like I've never been a fan of that. I think you should just learn that greater than opens to the left. Like I think that's pretty easy to just remember. Greater than opens to the left, less than opens to the right. Or if you really need something cutesy, you can think of less than as like an arrow. Less than points to the left. Less than less than points to the left if you think of it like an arrow. If you really need something cutesy, but I don't think you need something cutesy. I think you just remember greater than opens to the right. I do think it's important to learn that. But twice a number plus 4 is greater than 2/3 of the number is I just think that's a weird way to talk, but whenever people were inventing math questions, I was not consulted. Anyway, here we go. So twice a number plus 4 is greater than 2/3 of the number. So when you do this, I think a good strategy is to first find out what the variable is going to be. And in this case, it's a number. Twice a number plus 4 is greater than 2/3 of the number. So we can use anything we want for the number or a number, but I like in just for number. Okay. So then it says twice a number. So twice a number means two times the number, twice a number. If I say twice something, that means double it. Okay, and then the next part's pretty simple. It says plus 4. So plus 4. And then is greater than. That's the part that I think is actually valuable to know is greater than. And then we've got our fraction here, 2/3. So 2/3. And then the word of in math, of means multiply. Anytime you see of means multiplication. So of the number. So that's what our equation looks like. Twice a number plus 4 is greater than 2/3 of the number. So next time you need to say that to somebody, there you go. Now the problem asks us to actually do some math, which is the part that's important. Solve the inequality. So, depending on how you feel about fractions, you could just go ahead and leave this as a fraction, and that would be totally fine. I don't um, I don't love doing these with fractions, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply everything by 3. The lowest common denominator here is 3 because we only have one denominator, and it's 3. So I'm going to multiply everything by 3. So the 2n is going to get multiplied by 3 plus 4. 4 is also going to get multiplied by 3, is greater than 2/3 n, and that's going to get multiplied by 3. Multiplying everything by the lowest common denominator is a good way to just get rid of the fractions. Okay, so we've got 2n times 3, that is 6n. 4 times 3 is 12. And then 2/3 n times 3 is going to be 6/3. But these threes right here are going to cancel, and we're just going to be left with 2n. Okay, so let's solve this. So there's a couple of different ways that we can solve this problem. And I'm not going to lie, I think the easiest way is to subtract 2n. It looks a little weird when you subtract 2n on both sides. It looks a little weird when you do that because you end up with 0. 2n minus 2n is 0. This is definitely the easiest way to do it, though, because not only do you end up with your n's on the left side, but you also end up with a positive n. So I think this is the easiest way to solve it. I'm going to go ahead and solve it this way, but then I want to go back and solve it with subtracting 6n on both sides after I finish this, just to show you what to do if you end up with a negative n, a negative variable, because we haven't done an example like that yet, and it's an important thing to know. So let's go ahead and finish it this way. We'll subtract 12 on both sides. So the way I'm doing it is, I think, the easiest way, even though it does look a little weird. I think this is the easiest way to go. Let's make sure we X this out. We'll divide by 4, and we end up with n is greater than -3. In my opinion, easiest way to solve it. That would be our final answer, n greater than -3. But I want to go back right here to this step just because we have not yet done an example with a negative n, and that's an important one to know. So let's go ahead and see, just for funsies, this is educational, what would happen if we had subtracted 6n? And there are some advantages to subtracting 6n. We do end up with the n on the wrong side. I'm using wrong in air quotes here. You can't see it, but I'm doing air quotes here for wrong side. We do end up with the n on the wrong side, and we do end up with a negative, but we also don't have that 0 there. So this does save us a step. We can do it in one step faster if we do it this way. But I want to show what happens if you end up with a negative coefficient on the end. So what we do here next is we would divide by -4. You may already know this because it's something you cover in earlier math classes, but just so I make sure everybody knows, you do 12 divided by -4, which of course is the -3 that we expected. And over this side, -4 divided by -4 is just n. But the thing that I want to make sure everybody knows is that in an inequality, when you divide by a negative or multiply, when you divide or multiply by a negative, the inequality flips. So we did have this symbol as a greater than symbol, 12 greater than -4n. Now going to flip, -3 is less than n. And if we come down and compare these are actually the same. The one that I have highlighted in green says n is greater than -3. And this one up here says says -3 is less than n. Those mean the same thing. Both of them have the opening of the inequality towards the end. So they're saying the same thing. It's just the ends on the other side. So we got the same answer. You just need to know that when you multiply or divide by a negative, the inequality flips. It's the kind of thing you probably already knew from previous math classes, but just to make 100% sure that everybody remembers, multiplying or dividing by a negative causes the inequality to flip. Adding, subtracting, totally fine. Do whatever you want. If your answer is a negative, that's not a big deal at all. It's only when you multiply or divide by a negative that the inequality flips. So don't forget to do that, and you will be A-O good.